Caitlin Clark is way more important to the WNBA than Tiger Woods was to men's golf, even though he was huge. And to then see this negativity, like why and what should have been done? I look seriously at the leadership of the WNBA. And how could you not be prepared for this moment? You've seen it happening in the Big Ten. You've seen it at Iowa. You see these TV ratings.
Christine Brennan just exposed the WNBA in a major way.
Christine Brennan is one of the best sports writers in the country, has been for a long time.
The WNBA just got exposed in the most humiliating way possible. And it wasn't from a random fan meltdown online. Legendary USA Today journalist Christine Brennan, whose career has outlasted entire WNBA franchises, finally had enough of the circus. She dropped a truth bomb so massive it could have registered on the Richter scale, complete with receipts, layers of pettiness, and a total dismantling of the league's already fragile credibility over Caitlin Clark disaster. From the commissioner's office to a clique of jealous veterans who can't stand a rookie stealing their shine, Brennan scorched the whole system. Now, the real question, was this train wreck pure jealousy or next-level incompetence?
About what she had to say in this book was going to shake the ground of the WNBA. She's been around for a very long time, and she knows the inner and outer workings of this league. Christine Brennan let it be known in multiple interviews that the WNBA was not ready for a superstar like Caitlin.
Here's how this storm started brewing. Christine Brennan, who's been covering women's basketball longer than some players have been alive, decided to write a book, not a glossy, feel-good coffee table piece. This was a hard-hitting, investigative takedown of the WNBA's biggest self-inflicted wound, mishandling the Caitlin Clark moment. No opinion, no guessing, just meticulous, scorched-earth journalism. And the tremors from it are still shaking the league to its core.
Don't get, Christine, is that in the case of Tiger, and in the case of Jordan, the other players and the league around them, in Tiger's case, the PGA Tour, realized that a rising tide raises all boats and were incredibly supportive of Tiger and Jordan. With Caitlin, it seems like, for whatever reason, she's polarizing. Like she's been hit with more flagrant fouls than any player ever this year. They tried to come at you when you were writing a story and said, don't ask questions about why people don't like Caitlin Clark. But I'm going to ask you, Christine, why is she polarizing in your opinion? Why do people not embrace the phenomenon that is Caitlin Clark?
Brennan didn't stroll in to hand out participation ribbons. She came swinging a machete, cutting straight through PR spin to expose how tone-deaf, insecure, and downright lazy WNBA leadership was when the most marketable women's player in history landed in their lap. Caitlin Clark isn't just promising. She's a generational star who dragged the WNBA from the shadows into the mainstream. And instead of throwing her a parade, the league acted like they'd been forced to share a cubicle with someone they couldn't stand.
Big points in the book. I deal with all of this and my research and reporting, because I was perplexed as well. I mean, this is the greatest moment ever for the WNBA. Yep. We wish it happened sooner. Of course, we wish it happened sooner. There were amazing players who, as you know, Ramona, I mean, both you guys know, were toiling in obscurity, the male-dominated mainstream sports media ignoring them.
One of Brennan's most jaw-dropping finds came the day after Clark declared for the 2024 draft. Brennan called a senior WNBA executive expecting fireworks, champagne, at least a "we just won the lottery" moment. Instead, the exec compared Clark to Maya Moore. And while Moore is an all-time great, outside hardcore hoop circles, she never had anywhere near Clark's cultural pull before even touching a WNBA court. It was the ultimate "we don't get it" moment.
From home, like everybody else. And I think, guys, that actually helped me understand as a journalist the fascination, because I've covered a lot over my career and been very fortunate to be at Wimbledon's and Super Bowls and Tiger Woods and you name it. I've covered it. And I'm so lucky to have done that. And I found myself fascinated, like, who is this? And I'm getting text messages from guys who would never have watched a second of women's basketball. Good guys. They want their daughters to play sports. I mean, good people, but just And they're texting, "Are you there? I'm watching. Are you seeing this performance?" And that told me something that I actually was very helpful to be at home watching it versus being on press row, talking to a bunch of other journalists, that like, okay, there's something going on in the country here. And it's everyone's fascinated, and people are standing in line for hours in the cold around the Big Ten, this barnstorming tour, and it's all about a basketball player who happens to be a woman.
That single phone call told Brennan everything. Clark wasn't just another star. She was a cultural avalanche about to bury every tired narrative that the WNBA was irrelevant or unwatchable. Brennan could already see the tidal wave of attention, money, and fans coming. And the league's response? Sit on their hands. It's almost impressive to blow the easiest marketing slam dunk in sports history this badly. Even worse, Brennan revealed the WNBA didn't just fail to prepare. They couldn't even imagine it. Years of living in the sports back row left them unable to picture their games matching to millions. It's like running a bakery for decades and being shocked when someone actually wants your bread.
Unauthorized, which is not ominous at all. You want it to be unauthorized because I can tell the truth, unvarnished. Caitlin's quoted throughout the book. She was great answering any question I asked her, but dealing with these important issues. So you've got a 74% black league. We understand this. I mean, I'm white. You know, Ramona, I think you guys are white.
Yeah.
We have no idea what it's like to be black in America. And I say that. Let's be brutally honest here. Here comes a white woman from Iowa, and she's going to be the biggest superstar. Now, absolutely, the spotlight's shining on her. Finally, it's shining on all these other players who deserved it for years but never got it. And that's a wonderful turn of events. But instead of focusing on the positives, sadly, the WNBA players, so many of them.
The wild part? Everyone outside the league saw it coming. Reporters, analysts, even YouTubers have been waving neon signs since Clark's Iowa days. This was a game changer. Her fan base wasn't just big. It was rabid, loyal, and ready to flood arenas the second she went pro. In 2023, the Indiana Fever averaged about 4,000 fans per home game, a decent Texas high school crowd. Then Clark showed up for a preseason warm-up, and suddenly people were lining up 2 hours early like it was a Taylor Swift concert. Security staff were stunned. They'd never seen anything like it.
And an antagonist. And I've argued that the NBA could use a little bit more of hero and villain to popularize the sport again. The WNBA does not need that because for a lot of America, Caitlin Clark is the hero. And anyone that comes to Caitlin Clark's defense is a hero. And everyone that flagrantly fouls her, speaks poorly of her, acts like she's not great is the villain, and then vice versa on that. How big of a part of the story is that when you look at the conflict surrounding Caitlin?
So, how did the WNBA capitalize on this once-in-a-generation moment? Massive campaigns? Social media blitzes? Making Clark the face of their global brand? Nope. They acted like annoyed homeowners mad about extra cars parked on their street. It's almost like they preferred being a small pond rather than swimming in the ocean.
You got grown men on talking head shows wanting to fight each other over women's basketball and talking about it, right? We've got all these hot takes about all this going on, Christine. How big of a part of the story is that for you, and is that for this book?
I deal with it for sure in the book. And, I think what we've seen is surprising to me, having covered women's sports as well as men's, for the length of my career.
Then Brennan exposed the league's real poison, jealousy. From the top brass to certain players to legacy media, there was an undercurrent of bitterness. They couldn't stomach that Clark, fresh out of college, was drawing bigger crowds, more airtime, and richer sponsorship deals than veterans who've been grinding for a decade. Instead of seeing her rise as a tide lifting all boats, they saw it as a personal threat.
And here comes Caitlin Clark, and let's say it, and I say it in the book. I go into this in depth. A white woman from Iowa in a 74% black league. That's an issue. The book is the first real journalistic look at this entire season and at Caitlin Clark and what she's done and all these issues that are out there. No holds barred. I shy away from nothing.
That jealousy turned ugly fast. Players took extra physical shots. Officials missed obvious fouls. Coaches slid slide digs and depressors. Writers churn out think pieces whining that Clark was too popular, as if popularity is a crime in sports. It's like being handed a winning lottery ticket and complaining the paper feels weird.
I look at the way players like Diana Taurasi, Brianna Stewart, Cheryl Swoops with her flurry of falsehoods, Cheryl Reeve, the Olympic coach, Gina Auriemma, really tried to minimize her and were very critical of her. That stunned me. You should be saying, this is great. You don't have to cheer for her. You guard her. You play tough. She's not a victim. She loves to throw it at people. She's feisty and tough out there. And that makes her, I think, even more appealing to so many people. But for this group of people to want to say such negative things and be so wrong about her, okay, fine. It's a free country. You can do what you want. But what she's doing by going into the WNBA.
The worst part? None of this was hard to predict. Clark's time at Iowa was a 4-year masterclass in building a brand and a fan base. She shattered records, sold out arenas nationwide, and turned casual viewers into diehards. Her following would go wherever she did. Anyone with half a brain knew she was bringing that storm to the WNBA. Everyone except the people paid to grow the league. Brennan's reporting also uncovered a toxic mindset. That mainstream popularity corrupts the game. That warped thinking left Clark unprotected from jealousy-fueled hits, cheap fouls, and media spin turned her success into a problem.
So Caitlin Clark is way more important to the WNBA than Tiger Woods was to men's golf, even though he was huge to men's golf. And to then see this negativity, you'll probably, the next question would be, or your viewers and listeners are probably saying, okay, so like why? And what should have been done? And I look seriously at the leadership of the WNBA. And how could you not be prepared for this moment? You've seen it happening in the Big Ten. You've seen it in Iowa. You see these TV ratings. 4 million more, as I said, watching the women than the men. I think it's worth repeating a few times because it is a stunning statistic, guys.
Brennan's work makes one thing impossible to ignore. The WNBA didn't just miss its biggest opportunity ever. They tripped over it, face-planted, and kicked the gold mine back into the dirt. They had Caitlin Clark, the most talked-about player in decades, creating buzz loud enough to hear from space. And they responded with an amateur hour merch rollout, game schedules that felt like they were drawn from a bingo cage, and marketing that looked like it belonged to a middle school fundraiser. This wasn't just mistake after mistake. It was willful blindness. Even now, in Clark's sophomore season, TV ratings explode every time she plays. Her merch sells out like Jordan's. Arenas roar like Beyonce just walked in. And still there's tension, like some in the league quietly wish the Caitlin Clark phenomenon would just vanish, so they could go back to being ignored.
White, one black. And so we have that moment with these two. But the one thing I know about sports, you need rivalry. That's what makes people watch. They want to watch games of consequence between rivals. They don't want everybody being nice to one another. So the social media is different today than it was in 1979 when it didn't exist. But, I always tell the players, I was told a long time ago, if someone's typing something in and you wouldn't ask their advice, ignore it. So it's a balance, but certainly from a marketing dollars, but corporate partners are stepping up to endorse these players, much more so than they were 5 years.
Brennan's reporting doesn't just call the league out. It nukes them. This was a league on financial life support, praying for relevance. Then along comes Caitlin Clark, a generational star with crossover appeal, charisma, and the gravity to pull fans, sponsors, and networks straight into the WNBA. And they treated her like a squeaky door they couldn't be bothered to fix. It's a textbook case of an institution so stuck in its ways it sabotages its own future. All they had to do was protect Clark, promote her like their lives depended on it, and ride the wave into a new era. Instead, they let jealousy and outdated thinking run the show, almost offended that success came wearing an Iowa jersey and a ponytail.
Such an incredible moment on a global scale for our game, for our players.
It's like the fans are absolutely incredible. It's the same when we go on the road. Like there's so many people that are showing up in fever gear. It's really affecting, teams all across our league, which is a really great thing. And, really, I think we're just scratching the surface.
One of Brennan's most damning points. The insiders completely misread the room. They thought their brand was too pure for a mainstream breakout, as if staying niche was some badge of honor. The fix was simple. Get behind Clark, shield her from cheap shots, and let her lift everyone. Instead, they threw up roadblocks. While the old guard slept, new media saw the future. YouTubers, TikTokers, and indie journalists knew Clark's appeal went far beyond basketball. Meanwhile, the WNBA was still stuck in 1998, bungling PR, burying marquee matchups in awful time slots, and proving allergic to modern marketing.
Bringing more and more fans to this league, people that have maybe never watched the WNBA before, and it kind of takes.
Brennan makes it clear this wasn't clumsiness. It was self-sabotage. The WNBA treated its biggest slam dunk like a problem to contain. That mindset bled into locker rooms and sidelines. Too many saw Clark's spotlight as a threat, not a payday. Newsflash. A rising tide lifts all boats. It doesn't sink the fleet because one ship shines brighter. This wasn't just a U.S. opportunity. Clark's global. Women's hoops is booming overseas, and she already had an international following. The league could have planted its flag worldwide. Instead, the targeting, jealousy, and inaction became the story. Brennan even details how the hard fouls weren't just physical. They were resentment made visible. And where was Commissioner Engelbert? Either oblivious or complicit. Neither inspires confidence. The hypocrisy was stunning. The same people who undercut Clark publicly brag about women's basketball finally getting its due without admitting she's a reason. The cost wasn't just emotional, it was financial. Bigger crowds, higher ratings, better pay. Thrown away so egos could stay intact. Brennan's book isn't just Clark's story. It's the WNBA's greatest fumble, where jealousy and insecurity buried the future in real time.